Hi there and welcome to my latest video build. This time it's of the eagerly and long awaited Trumpeter 1/32 TBD-1 Devastator. As we all know, this was announced years ago but only just arrived at the marketplace this summer. Let's see if it was worth the wait. The box is full. There are 181 plastic parts on 10 sprues, including one transparent. The quality of the moulding appears good, with no flash or awkwardly placed ejection marks evident anywhere. There's a photo etch sheet that doesn't contain a lot of items but is still welcome. Nice to have some seat belts provided, as they're so often missed off large-scale kits these days. The decal sheet is well printed with markings for 2 subjects, and a particularly welcome addition is the sheet of canopy masks. Also vinyl tyres, not my favourite really, but there are no mould seams evident on them. The transparency is well done, with options for closed or any combination of open canopies. Watch the attachment points though, they're very thick and it's easy to damage the parts when removing them. And don't forget the references. 1 or 2 things need correcting on this kit, and the good old Squadron Signal Publications is still the best one-stop reference you can get for a build like this. The 2 single-piece cowlings are an interesting inclusion, open or closed cooling gills being the option offered. The surface detail is very well done, a particularly good representation of the distinctive ribbing on the outer wing panels, I thought. A clearer example of the rivet and panel detail can be seen here on the front of the fuselage. Component parts generally are well moulded, but the thick attachment points mean they often have to be sawn rather than cut from the sprues, and that does take a little bit of extra cleaning up as a result. Assembly started in my case with the engine. This is a bit basic by modern 1/32 scale standards, although it assembled well enough. I have an issue with the shape of the cylinder heads, which to be fair can't be seen on the finished model, but also the crankcase cover. This can be seen, but I left it alone. I suspect purists may want to do something about it though. I added some detail to the engine, mainly plug leads from round section rubber. More could have been done, but little would have been seen on the finished model, so I left it at that. An essential modification though is required to the propeller, which has an inaccurate boss and no representation at all of the distinctive speed weights at the base of the blades. Any reference will show you exactly what I mean. Left unattended, this will seriously impair the look of the finished model. So I turned a new boss and the weights from brass rod on my Unimat lathe. The weights were attached with small bits of plastic card. For anyone without a lathe, the parts could almost as easily be represented with sections of plastic rod, but I really do think this is a job that needs doing. The cockpit interior came next. Obviously a lot of it is visible through the extensive glazing, so this is an important area. There are a lot of component parts and they assemble very well. However, I was left with a feeling that the overall level of detail was a little bit on the basic side. Maybe a few more extra little bits of brass would have helped. Still, the finished unit looked pretty good. The dope natural metal finish is correct for early production TBDs. The more familiar zinc chromate was gradually introduced over time. If modelling the 1942 variant of this kit, almost everything would be interior green as per the kit painting instructions. The fuselage halves fitted round the interior unit really well, despite the unit's complex structure. You do need to be careful to scrape all paint off the various mating surfaces though, not just for a strong bond, but also for a good fit because the tolerances are very tight. The fit though, overall excellent, and it was not as big a job as I expected. I made up my own sequence for assembling the wings, contrary to the kit's instructions. The centre section was fitted to the fuselage first, and then the upper inner panels added. The fit was almost perfect, no filler required. The pre-assembled outer panels were then finally added, again with very good fit. A test fit of the folded wing components looked promising. Bit basic, but essentially accurate, and could easily be improved if that's the option you want to go for. Another good feature of the kit is the separately moulded control surfaces. Not only are these nicely detailed, but the fit is excellent. The rudder and elevators fitted so well that I didn't even bother gluing them. The ordnance, though, is a bit of a mixture. The torpedo's pretty good with etched brass additional fins if you want to model the later version, but the bombs, I thought, well, the racks are okay, but the fins and the fuse vanes are really too thick and heavy for this scale, and I expect most modelers would want to replace or improve them in some way. Here you can see the basic airframe completed. It was primed with alclad grey primer, revealing hardly any blemishes. The doped aluminium finish on the fuselage of the real aircraft was less shiny and more uniform than a polished metal finish, and I thought alclad aluminium captured the look well. Note the yellow on the tail. It's obviously not the same as the colour of the wings, despite the painting instructions in the kit telling you it is. The yellow for ID markings was paler and less intense than the chrome yellow of the wings. I've indicated the mix I used for this on the slide, incidentally. Normally I would have painted most of the markings on the model, not too difficult in this scale. However, for the sake of the review, I thought I'd better give the decals a go. I found that the larger items went on well, although they were not easy to reposition in any way. That's why I used some masking tape markers you can see here to try and get the position right first time. The undercarriage was dealt with next. It looks a bit basic at first, but it's accurate, and the moulded on brake pipes have been done well. Vinyl tyres can be a nuisance if, as is often the case, there's a very difficult to remove mould seam around them. Not the case here, I'm pleased to say. All that's required is a little bit of matting down with some fine wire wool. All of the undercarriage parts fit together very nicely, and they do provide a really solid base for the finished model. Yes, I know the Bombardier's doors shouldn't be open when the torpedo is being carried, which you all know was aimed by the pilot. The Bombardier's position only being opened up when the bomb load was carried and the final bomb run was being carried out. However, Trumpeter have designed the doors to be modelled open, and they don't fit at all if you try to model them closed. And at least they show off the window area, which is really quite detailed anyway. So I left them as they were. With the paintwork and most of the decaling complete, it's time now to start work on the canopy. The individual units are nicely produced, but there's a bit of a problem with the masking set. There are external and internal masks provided, but they're simply duplicates of each other, which means that due to the internal curvature of the canopy, some of the internal ones don't fit and need trimming. It helps if the external ones are put on first, as they make it a sort of marker to see where the internal ones need to be cut. They don't all need doing, just the ones on the curviest parts of the canopy. If you look in the picture, 22 and 23 and 28 and 29 would be examples of what I'm talking about. This job was not as fiddly as it sounds, and it was certainly a heck of a lot better than having no masks at all. Despite needing some trimming, the masks did their job well, adhering and conforming nicely, but leaving no residue on removal. The completed canopy sections were added in stages. They were fixed with liquid cement applied carefully along the bottom edge of each transparency. Provided care is taken to remove the paint from the mating surfaces, both the bond and the fit were really good. The trickiest bit was fitting the pilot's canopy. It's best to attach it to the section behind it first, and then add both bits to the fuselage together. I was rather pleased with the finished glazing. The thickness of the plastic means it's not totally accurate, but it looked effective to my eye. So, a couple of coats of well-thinned Johnson's Clear, or whatever its latest incarnation is, and the model was complete. This one's obviously finished in the markings of the well-known 2T1 from VT2, based aboard the USS Lexington in 1938. A wartime version from VT6 based on the Enterprise is the other option, although no doubt the aftermarket folks will be providing us with more choices in the near future. So, in response to the original question, was the kit worth waiting for? Yes. Obviously it has a few issues, but nothing that a modeller of any sort of experience couldn't deal with. Above all, my memory of this kit is what a pleasure it was to build from start to finish. If you have a go at one, I hope you enjoy it as much as I did. Thanks for listening, thanks for watching, hope to see you again soon. Thank you, goodbye.